In February 1959, a rescue team made a chilling discovery. High in the freezing Ural Mountains, an abandoned tent sat half-buried. It hadn't been unzipped, it was slashed open from the inside. The 9 experienced hikers who slept there were gone. But their boots, coats, and survival gear were still inside. Leading away from the tent was a trail of footprints, left by people walking into 30 below temperatures in their socks. What chased them out into the dark? This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident. One of the most terrifying unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. To understand how they died, we must look at how it began. 2 weeks earlier, the group set out full of excitement. They were elite students, certified in extreme winter survival. Their goal was a grueling ski trek across the northern Urals. It was supposed to be the crowning achievement of their youth. The route took them deep into indigenous Mansi territory to a peak the locals called Kalatsiakal. Translated, it means Mountain of the Dead. For the first few days, the expedition went perfectly. Archival photos show them laughing, breaking trail, and making camp. But on January 31st, the weather turned violent. A massive whiteout storm swallowed the mountain pass. Visibility dropped to almost zero as the wind howled. They were forced to make a fatal navigational decision. Instead of retreating to the tree line for shelter, they pitched their tent on the exposed, freezing slope. It was a defiant move against the brutal elements. Night fell, plunging the mountain into total darkness. Inside the canvas, they ate dinner and stripped off their boots. They had no idea it was their final night on Earth. Sometime after midnight, something went terribly wrong. Someone grabbed a knife and began slashing through the tent wall. 9 people scrambled out into the freezing darkness. No coats, no boots, no time to think. The temperature that night was minus 31 degrees Celsius. They ran 500 meters down the slope toward the forest. Behind them, the tent sat abandoned and silent. At the edge of the tree line, they stopped near a massive cedar tree. Someone managed to build a fire with whatever branches they could find, but it wasn't enough. 2 of them never left that tree alive. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko were found frozen here. They were barefoot and had cuts on their hands from breaking branches. Nearby, 3 more bodies were found along the path back to the tent. Igor Dyatlov, the group's leader, lay face down in the snow. Zinaida Kolmogorova lay just 300 meters from the tent. Rustam Slobodin was found closer still, his fists clenched from the cold. All 3 had died of hypothermia. Their bodies told a clear story. But 4 more hikers were still missing. It took 2 months of searching before the snow finally released them. On May 4, 1959, the last 4 bodies were found buried in a ravine. They were buried under 12 feet of compacted snow. Nikolai Thiboksbrignol, Ludmila Dubinina, Alexander Zolotarev, and Alexander Kolvatov. What happened to them in that ravine was far worse than hypothermia. The autopsy report revealed injuries no human should survive. Ludmila Dubinina had her tongue and several ribs torn from her body. Nikolai Thiboksbrignol's skull was fractured in multiple places. Zolotarev's chest was crushed as if hit by a car. Yet there were no external wounds, no signs of a struggle, crushed bones but no soft tissue damage on the outside. Soviet investigators had never seen anything like it. Then the investigators found something they couldn't explain. Several of the victims' clothes were contaminated with high levels of radiation, not enough to kill them, but enough to make no sense at all. Where did this radiation come from? The investigation was abruptly shut down by the KGB. The case files were stamped top secret and locked away for decades. No official explanation was ever given to the families. The official cause was ruled unknown compelling force, a classified verdict that raised more questions than it answered. For 60 years, theorists have tried to solve this puzzle. The first theory is simple. An avalanche collapsed their tent, but there were no avalanche tracks on the slope that night, and the footprints led away from the tent, not downhill. The second theory points to infrasound. Certain wind patterns over mountain ridges create sound too low for humans to hear, but loud enough to trigger panic and disorientation. It could explain why they fled in terror without their clothes. But infrasound doesn't crush chests or remove tongues. The third theory is the most terrifying. A katabatic wind, a falling wall of superdense, freezing air that hits like a freight train. It would explain the internal injuries and the crushed chests. But katabatic winds are rare, and their effects are unpredictable. Theory 4 involves something far stranger: the Soviet military. At the time of the incident, secret missile tests were conducted nearby. The hikers may have stumbled into a military operation and been silenced to protect state secrets. This would explain the KGB cover-up and the secret files. But why the radiation? And why the strange injuries? Some believe the answer lies not on the ground, but in the sky above. Reports of strange orange spheres in the sky were common in the region that winter. Witnesses in nearby villages reported glowing objects moving across the mountains. One military officer described them as fireballs with a tail. These sightings occurred on the same night the hikers died. Were they secret military weapons, or something far stranger? In 2019, scientists attempted to solve the case once and for all using computer simulations. They tested the avalanche theory again. Their model suggested a delayed avalanche triggered hours after they made camp. The weight of the snow could have crushed their chests while they slept. Panicked and injured, they cut their way out and fled downhill. It was logical. It was based on science, but it still left questions. Why was Ludmila Dubinina's tongue removed? Some forensic pathologists believe it was simply decomposition. Her body was found face down in a stream beneath the snow. Soft tissue decomposes faster in running water. It's nature, not mystery. But what about the radiation on their clothing? One of the victims worked at a nuclear facility before the trip. His contaminated work clothes may have been borrowed by the others that night. A simple explanation for a supposedly supernatural detail. Yet after all the science, all the simulations, one question remains. Why did they leave the tent in the first place? If it was an avalanche, why cut the tent instead of unzipping it? If they felt threatened, why didn't they take their boots? And if they were fleeing for their lives, why did they walk? The footprints show they walked calmly down the slope in a single line, as if they were not running from something, but walking towards something or obeying something they couldn't resist. To this day, the Russian government has never released all the evidence. Some files remain classified even now, 65 years later. The mountain itself has been renamed in their memory, but the name Mountain of the Dead still lingers in the wind. Today, hikers still make the pilgrimage to Dyatlov Pass. They leave flowers, notes, and tokens of respect in the snow. The mystery has turned 9 students into eternal legends, but behind the theories are real lives cut tragically short. They were young, ambitious, and full of dreams for the future. Igor, the leader who pushed them to achieve greatness. Zina, who fought to crawl back to the tent until her last breath. Rustam Slobodin, who fell just meters from safety. And the 4 in the ravine, who tried to survive together. Their names are carved into the mountain's history forever. Every theory we create says more about us than them. We fill the silence with monsters, conspiracies, and aliens, because the truth might be simpler and far more terrifying. That nature doesn't care about our plans or our survival. The avalanche theory is the most scientific explanation we have. But science cannot explain the panic that made them run, and it cannot explain why they walked calmly to their deaths. Perhaps some details are lost to time, buried under the snow, or perhaps the mountain holds secrets we aren't meant to know. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains a wound that never heals. It reminds us how fragile our control over the world really is. We are small against the cold, the dark, and the unknown. 9 lives were lost to a force we still cannot name. Their story is a warning written in ice and blood. Igor, Zina, Rustam, Yuri, and Yuri walked into the storm. Ludmila, Nikolai, Alexander, and Alexander never came back. They are not just a mystery to be solved. They were people with hopes, fears, and dreams like ours. We owe them the truth, if we can ever find it, or at the very least, we owe them our remembrance. The pass waits silently for the next traveler. The wind still howls the same song it sang in 1959. Will we ever truly know what happened that night? Perhaps some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved, to remind us that the world is vast and strange and that we are never fully in control. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains open, a ghost story written in snow, silence, and tragedy. 9 hikers walked into the dark and vanished, and the mountain never, ever let them go.